Good morning and welcome to this Friday, September 25th version of From Sunrise to Sunset with Pastor Gene. Today we're going to be looking at Matthew 20, verses 1 through 19. This is the parable of the laborers in the vineyard. It's a wonderful, wonderful story about the grace of God and the generosity of God. If you've read it, then you know the storyline. The owner of the vineyard is wanting to have some laborers to come in and do the work. And so some come early in the morning, some come at 9 o'clock, some come at noon, some come at 3, some are standing around idle around 5 o'clock, and even they are invited to come in and to help do the work that needs to be done. And then we get to the end of the day, and it's time to be paid. So if you go back and look at verses 2 and 4 of this passage, every one of them were told that if they came, they would receive a day's wages, and that this would be right. The owner of the vineyard would do what was right. And so at the end of the day, they all get the same thing. Well, you know where this is going. Complaint City. And to some extent, we can kind of understand why this would cause some grumbling and that sort of thing, especially if we really are talking about how much you work and how much you get paid, and if that's the real story here. But it's not. The real story here is that God is the owner of all the creation. God is the one in charge. And God bestows his grace to people who come into his presence, who come into his kingdom. God bestows the grace whenever God chooses to do it, and however God chooses to do it. This passage here is about God's sovereignty to extend grace. God's sovereignty to extend grace. This is not about our sense of fairness. This is not about our sense of understanding the economy. It's not an economic matter. It's a matter of grace and the sovereignty of God and the generosity of God to act on behalf of different folks at different times when they come into the life of the kingdom work. You know, I've dealt with a lot of folks through the years who have treated their church membership like a country club. They act like because they've been a member for so long that nobody new can come along and do anything, rather than bringing them up alongside them and helping them to be a part of the kingdom work. You know, friend, I'm not saying anything wrong here. I'm just saying what is right. And we know that. We're supposed to be generous, and we're supposed to be giving, and we're supposed to be helpful, and we're supposed to be doing kingdom work. And to do that, we have to remember that people are going to come in different ways and at different times, and that God's grace is extended to all. This section today ends with a third time that Jesus foretells his death and resurrection. And, you know, I think if you think about this particular parable or this particular story of the laborers in the vineyard and how upset people get when they don't think things are fair, perhaps Jesus realized that our sense of fairness not being carried out because of the great gift of grace, generosity, and mercy might just anger people enough to cause a problem, even his death. So, as you think about God's grace in your life, ask yourself this question. You know, if I'm going to come into the kingdom work now, Am I willing to receive the grace that God will give me? And if someone else comes into kingdom work now or kingdom faith now, am I willing to accept that God accepts them too? Think about that from sunrise to sunset.